You cannot go to a nice museum and look at the pretty Van Goghs, look at that beautiful Starry, Starry Night, which is a gorgeous painting. All those paintings were so beautiful. And say, that man, that was a brilliant man, and people treated him badly. Well, look in the mirror. Really examine yourself. Would I have treated him differently? That was his day-to-day life, in addition to being this beautiful painter that nobody really gave a crap about his work either. Treat people better here on this instance. Treat the mentally ill better. I've been thinking about Vincent van Gogh a lot lately. Vinny, my old cousin Vinny.
Vinny Bag of Donuts, how are you? This is Vinny.
I actually always appreciated Van Gogh's artwork, but as I grew older and I developed serious mental illness, I also started appreciating what he suffered, what he went through as just a regular person. And the thing about that is that he was intensely creative. He was intensely productive. And that might have been part of what led to his eventual suicide. Van Gogh shot himself one day while out and about doing his thing in the gut. And he died two days later. And he was generally not liked by the people around him. People kind of despised him. And why did they despise him? Well, he was mentally ill. He was not always tame in public. He developed a lot of tics. He developed a lot of strange things. He was psychotic sometimes. He did have psychosis. But generally speaking, medical professionals today don't want to give him things like schizophrenia because he tended to make full recoveries and then have other huge episodes, which is tends to be not the character of schizoaffective disorder, which is what I have, for instance. He may have had epilepsy. He may have had a rare form of bipolar disorder that had psychosis attached to it, but not schizoaffective disorder. The point being, people nowadays want to kind of look back on him and say, well, if only he'd been alive today, we would have had medications for him. We would have had serious counseling options for him. He would have been okay. I say no. And I say no, not because of who he is. And I say no, not because I have no faith in modern psychiatric disciplines and treatments, because I do. I just don't think people are realistic about how they would, or how they do, how they are around schizophrenic people, how they would treat people with mental illness. I think that people talk a big game. Oh, if I knew someone like Van Gogh with all the beautiful work he created, I would treat him 100% better than they treated him at the time. I doubt it. And I base that on how I see people treating people with mental illness all the time. All the time. Suspicion, distrust, fear, mockery. He didn't experience any of those things differently than say I do, or maybe you do if you have also serious mental illness. It's not about that. If you actually spent time with a schizophrenic person one-on-one for any length of time, maybe you'd find some troubling things that they'd say or do. Maybe you'd find occasionally there is, more than occasionally, maybe you'd find that often enough there's even violent tendencies in some people with serious mental illness. That's something you can't avoid. It's not like it's always safe. It's not like it's always pleasant. But I think you'd find that we're much more gentle and soft and harmless than most people want to give it credit for being on the first blush, right? There are artists all over this society right now just as talented as Van Gogh. First of all, their work will never see the light of day like his did. Second of all, they may have medications, they may have treatment available to them, they may not, but they're not going to be treated that much better than the people in Van Gogh's era treated him. And I don't know that there's a solution for that necessarily, other than educating people, which is kind of what I'm doing right now, sort of trying to, poorly, not artfully. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I can speak. I can speak for this. I have a voice. I have a tongue, and I have recovered much of what was lost for me during my first psychosis 8 years ago. It's not fair. It's not fair. I'll say it that way, because I didn't ask for this. I didn't go looking for this. And the people who are no longer with me, and the situations that I no longer can partake in, the opportunities, the housing, all those things that I lost, they ain't coming back, and it's not fair. And I'm sure that Van Gogh felt similarly. I don't think I'm offering a solution. I'm just telling you how it feels. Treat us better out there. Treat all of us better out there. Treat yourself better out there. Especially if you have mental illness, and many people are exhibiting signs of mental illness these days that maybe didn't used to happen anymore. And that could be the pressure situation the world is under. It kind of makes sense. Could be the loneliness factor. You're going to discover, if it's not you, you're going to meet people who maybe didn't have mental illness issues before, and they definitely do now. The pandemic, the wars brewing everywhere, the strife here in the United States, if you're American, there's things happening that are going to trigger your foibles, and you may find that you're in a situation where you didn't expect, but things are getting tense in your head, and you're depressed, and you're up one minute and you're down the next, or you're starting to see and hear things that doesn't make sense to you, or you're just being treated in ways that doesn't make sense to you because you'll be blind to it at first. You won't understand what's happening yourself. It's not fair. It isn't fair how this happens, and how people will eventually treat you, and how the world will succumb to this fear and paranoia of you. And you are always a regular person, you see the injustice that flows from that. And again, I'm not complaining. I'm saying that this is the way it is, and maybe we could do better. And if we have politicians leading us who are also kind of crappy about it, fearful, bigoted, mocking, okay, it's not going to help. We need rational, adult, sane, emotionally non-compromised, emotionally mature individuals making policies for me, for the millions of other schizophrenics, for the billions of mental health sufferers, mental illness sufferers, right? It isn't fair. We need to make this fairer. And I don't know if that means more housing for people like me. I don't know if that means throwing money at the situation is going to really help. I'd like a cultural shift. I'd like a cultural shift where people like me can be understood rather than torn to shreds. Because we're already the lowest of the low. We're already on the bottom of everything. You can be a perfectly happy, sane, safe, beautiful individual one day, and then 5 years later you've lost everything because your mind went out on you, or chemical imbalance, or demons got at you and spirits made you go all sorts of crazy. Whatever your line of thinking on this is, it came out of nowhere, blindsided your ass, and now you're on your ass. Sorry. So I guess that's all this is, man, today. This is an educational thing for y'all, for me as well. I'm testing the waters of my own belief system here, my own psyche. I don't like this feeling of unevenness. I have a well-developed sense of justice, probably because I was bullied so much as a kid. Unrelated, sort of. But look, you cannot go to a nice museum and look at the pretty Van Goghs, look at that beautiful Starry, Starry Night, which is a gorgeous painting. All those paintings were so beautiful. And say, that was a brilliant man, and people treated him badly. Well, look in the mirror. Really examine yourself. Would I have treated him differently? if I know him. If I've seen this guy ranting and raving, walking down the street, cursing at children or cursing at me or being weird about women and cutting off his ear to appease this thing, or having, issues with his roommate on this level, yeah, he paints beautifully, but, right? Okay, so that was his day-to-day life, in addition to being this beautiful painter that nobody really gave a crap about his work either. Treat people better here on this instance. Treat the mentally ill better. You can do it. And it's reasonable to do, and it's reasonable to accept, because from my perspective, I don't have as much control over it as you want me to have. I don't have as much agency in this as you want me to have. But I can tell you that I'm not dangerous. I'm not a threat. I'm not scary. I'm not stupid. I'm not awful. I'm not any of those things. I'm a person. Mental illness speaks.